People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, we're back, and this week we have I don't even know. It's one of those mystery guests.
It's gonna be fun.
This is one that I have that podcast group where I have podcasters from all over the world that try to find guests, be a guest, and this lady reached out to us, and I'm like, yeah. The first line of her one sheet says, "Listen to this: former hacker, engineer, and convict." You got me. I want to know more.
Yeah.
So that was it. That was the first line. So, everybody, it's Lisa Bischoff. What's happening? How are you? Did I say it right?
Good. Yep, you said it right. Thank you, Wes and Natalie. Great to meet you guys. Thank you for having me. So the short version of my story, and we can get into the lengthier parts. I would love for you to ask questions and whatever you want to know. But basically, it started I wrote my first software program in the 4th grade. It was a blackjack program, and I was in gifted and talented and just I guess very smart. I just was always praised for my academics. By the age of 14, I got my first computer at home, and this was back in 1994. I was born in 80, and started using it to hack phone lines and jam them and win radio contests. Everybody thought it was great and cute, and that was kind of how that started. At that same time, I was also starting college. So I started college concurrently with high school, and did
You were
that.
doing both at the same time? I'm sorry? You were doing both?
Yeah, I was doing classes in both. So I wouldn't say I was full-time college, but I was doing my classes at the college and in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
And no, you're fine. And my mom was so gracious. She enrolled with me because I couldn't drive. And so she started taking the classes with me in the college. So my parents have always been super supportive of everything. So I would go on and start pursuing an electrical engineering degree at the University of Colorado. And my classes got hard. And I've always been used to being number one. And I was not doing too well. And so my mind is always, I have this mentality, and it's been since the 3rd grade when I got bumped from an upper level to a mid-level reading group of I will always do whatever it takes. And unfortunately, that meant good or bad. Mm-hmm. And so I had a job as a tutor and working for the dean's office and leading some of the programs at the college. The office I had a key. And one night I had access to the master key to the dean's office, so I modified my key. So it became a master key, with filing some of the teeth and stuff down on it. And once I had that, I was like, cool, I'll use it just to help me get the solution manuals to help me with the homework, so then I'll understand for the test. Well, of course it didn't stop there, because one of the times I saw a test sitting out on the desk and was like, oh, I'm going to go copy that. And so progressively throughout college, I ended up stealing my tests ahead of time. And if they weren't readily available, I would use my hacking skills or a keylogger on the back of a professor's computer to get on their machines and go print the test off myself. So like I said, it progressed. It started with hacking phone lines. People thought it was cute. And then it got into stealing my tests. And by the time I graduated, I would meet my best friend who was a model, and I wanted her life. She was everything I'd ever seen, on Beverly Hills 90210, beautiful, had access to everything. And so I became friends with her. And with that, though, I got connected to mafia, con artists, and criminals, and started seeing this other world that was really intriguing to me. And so I kind of started to get wrapped up into that. Went on to buy my first house at the age of 22. And it was, I think it was just under $500,000, but that's a lot for a 22-year-old. As an engineer, I wasn't making 6 figures yet. But these real estate brokers helped me get into that house, and they weren't really on the up and up. It turns out they were kind of con artists, and I had seen what they did to other people, but figured I was different and they wouldn't do that to me. Well, they did. I found out after I closed on my house, they had rolled extra money that they took out into the loan. And so I was pretty upset, and I had an opportunity. They had those, the gold coins, the dollar gold coins you buy. They had those, and so they had 60,000 of them, $60,000 worth, and we had gone on a trip, and I was very upset with them, but like the old saying goes, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So that's what I did. So anyways, we're on this trip, the $60,000, I didn't know it was there, but somebody else knew it was there. This lady came in as an insurance agent, like to kind of go over all their assets. It turns out she was a con artist. And she would end up stealing $30,000 worth. So that meant there were 30,000 left. Well, the guys got smart and ended up putting it into a safe. I decided I wanted to get that $30,000. And at one point, I got my trainer at the time to help me steal this safe because it was a big Brownie safe that was probably like 1,000 pounds with all the coins and everything in it. And yeah, and so we get it out of the house on a dolly and we're trying to push it up a hill. And he goes, there's no way. Like, and we're cracking tiles walking outside of this patio home. And so we put the safe back. And at this point, I'm like, well, I got to figure out how to get in the safe. And the only way to do that is to actually either have an officer come on site and verify you own it to get the combination from the safe company. That was it. Or steal the safe and have it in your possession. So since that didn't work, I ended up doing, I guess, what you would call social engineering. Called the safe company and said, hey, I got the safe. You guys gave me a bad combination. The person broke protocol and faxed me the combination. So I ended up breaking into the safe and stealing $30,000 worth of coins and some other stuff that was in there. And it wouldn't be discovered for about 4 months. But that one, and what got me caught was the model, the friend. And we were no longer friends, but she basically told on me. And there's a whole big story with all of that and the US bank and the coins. But they basically gave me a slap on the wrist. My family paid back the money and that was it. So I didn't really get in trouble. And that was in 2003. So we go on. By 2007, I'm $1 million in debt. And my thing has never been drugs and alcohol. It's expensive, shiny things. Like, I love toys. I love motorcycles, crotch rockets. I've always had my own bikes. I love expensive cars, lavish, big vacations. So 2007, trying to figure out how I'm going to sustain my lifestyle because I'm maxed out and leveraged in every possible way. So I kind of I had a roommate at the time and he was an accountant, but formerly, like, he was a bookie and he would always tell me about all these scams and fraud and all this stuff he used to do, but he never got caught. So I'm thinking, okay, and this guy's got good credit. So a lot of people don't know this part of the story. Originally, I was actually going after his credit and going to figure out how to, would have been committing identity theft to access about 100,000 in credit and pull from it thinking it won't hurt him. They'll just pay it off. I wasn't real versed on it, but that was kind of the idea. But anyways, I was on a trip in Arizona for my company and I see this beautiful Porsche. It was a 2002 $92,000 Porsche that I test drove and decided I had to have it. But again, I had no money. I was maxed out. So I used somebody else's identity that I'd stolen on another trip from another company and started the purchasing process. Well, I started it one night, that night, super sick. Like, what am I going to do with this car? Like, it probably has low jack. Like, they're going to find out that I did this. I can't even part the car out. Everything's, identifiable. And so I go back the next day and I get arrested. Like, they knew, like, they had checked everything. It turns out they knew it was fraud, identity theft. And at the time of that arrest, my backpack that I had with me had my laptops and hard drives that contained the database of Colorado Springs that I'd formerly hacked into. So get arrested in Arizona. My parents come and bail me out and drive me back because I can't fly because they confiscated all my identification. As we're driving back to Colorado Springs, getting phone calls that I'm all over the news here. And everybody's like, what did you do? And it was all over that they were looking for information on me for identity theft and theft of information, all this stuff. Get back here, eventually get arrested. That story in 2007 ends with 30 days in jail in Tent City with Sheriff Joe Arpaia, which was horrible in Phoenix.
Gosh. In June. I want to know more about that. Yes.
That was an interesting, Orange is the New Black. Definitely, yeah, that was an interesting experience. Colorado Springs, I ended up not getting anything but probation and community service here, and I wasn't allowed to use technology, smartphones or computers for 2 years as part of my probationary term. So that was in 2007, 2008. But my career was over as an engineer. I lost all my security clearances and nobody would hire me. I couldn't even do my community service. And that was like a whole other story of paying that off just to get my hours completed so I satisfied probation. And hopefully the statute of limitations is run out on that so I don't get in trouble for saying that. But that was trying to figure out what do I do with my life. My parents were like, well, don't just sit at home, go do something. Because I was just depressed. So I started going to church here in town, and I was raised Catholic and started going to an Assemblies of God church here. Absolutely loved it. Really fell in love with the Lord and getting back into fitness and stuff. I joined a country club, started playing a lot of tennis and golf. The problem is that's very expensive. And all the people I was meeting were multimillionaires. I mean, some of my friends I hung out with made over $40 million a year, and I wanted to do all the things that they did. And I was trying to figure out how to sustain that. So time would go on. I'd pick up odd jobs and do random things. I did team building with the Denver Broncos at one point. One of my friends hired me, and I got to help with that. And I picked up a lot of skill sets over the years. Eventually, I got hired on at the church as an admin in children's ministry, and then eventually became a director in children's ministry and started designing services and loved it. I mean, I got to lead services from stage, film them. I had my own green screen room. I got into magic, so I was a magician for a period of time, and an officer for Society of American Magicians, and
Wow.
loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I loved doing the illusions. I loved using it to teach magic. I also got into some other deeper sides of magic, and that was probably not good for me because I learned more about deception and using. I misused sleight of hand. I mean, I took magic and all the good parts of it and started using it in a bad way. So fast forward by 2019, I'm trying to maintain basically two lifestyles. The one over here with the church where I love Jesus and I do very much love the Lord, but then over here, I love the world. I love those expensive, shiny things and wanted to do all the things my friends were doing. And I'd find myself over $100,000 in debt by 2019. And it was a combination of my credit and my parents' credit, and they didn't know it. And it would be the second time I had done that over the years to them where I maxed out credit. And they previously had paid it off and just said, don't ever do that. And I promised I wouldn't, and I broke that promise. And by 2019, I didn't want them to find out. And so that's when I masterminded a $600,000 diamond and jewelry heist from a client that I worked for. And I didn't actually know the amount that I was stealing. I thought it was only $200,000 worth of diamonds and jewelry. It wasn't until that theft got discovered that I found out the magnitude of it. And so that would be 2019. And that time I'm facing mandatory prison because it's my third strike. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I messed up. Everybody gave me a second chance. I blew it. And I do not want to go to mandatory prison for 12 years. So I was pretty hopeless. At the time of my arrest, I was about 225 pounds in just bad shape, oppressed, depressed. And when you see my mugshot, you'll see it's bad. And I looked at and started the process to hire someone to kill me because I figured, well, I've got connections. I can use, those, and somebody can take me out, make it look like an accident. My parents can get the insurance settlement and kind of like getting a refund on my life. I don't have to go to prison. I don't have to suffer my consequences. This is a great idea. I shared that story with somebody, the pastor's wife that I used to work for. She goes, if anything happens to you, I'm going to tell the insurance company what you did. And so she said, instead, let's get you some help. And I'm like, well, I've been through psychotherapist, clinical psychologist. It always seems like I am better surface wise. And then I relapse, it's like relapsing into crime. And so it's like, I don't know that it's going to help. Well, it did. So I ended up going through inner healing at a ministry. And as I was going through that, I would go for my sentencing in December of 2019 to find out if I'm going to prison for 12 years or not. And by the grace of God, the judge he gave me 30 days in jail, or 30 days of work release. And in January of 2020, I reported for that jail sentence. And the day I reported to serve the full 30 days, they said, oh, it's been reduced to 2 weeks. So there's been a lot of blessing and grace and mercy on my life, and I'm very thankful for that. So I would go through inner healing. My life would start to change as I started getting healing from the inside and going to core memories and finding out why I did the things I did. What was that drive and what was that disassociation and things happening? And then from there, I ended up hiring a coach from Tony Robbins, and that coach was phenomenal. She changed my life, and she encouraged me to go back into fitness and pursuing being healthy and start working on my goals. So I did all that, and so it was transformation from the inside out that happened in my life, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
All right, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Your one sheet doesn't do it justice. Oh my gosh, I need to just... Woo, you're talking so fast that it's like, oh, that's it. Holy crap, there's another layer and another layer and another layer.
No kidding.
Girl, oh my, and you got this beautiful smile. It's just, then I was jail and I was doing this. And I just picked the lock and I just did that. And it's $60,000 and the safe was breaking tiles, but I was just doing it.
Yeah.
Golly,
it
girl.
was nothing. Like, I would have been sweating bullets. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get caught. We got to get this thing out.
All right, I have so many questions. So question number one, blackjack at like 4th grade. I played blackjack a little bit, but I have to use my fingers. I'm not good at math. How are you programming this at 4 years old? Like
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade.
Yeah.
The computers I had when I was in the fourth grade, I mean, I could only play Oregon Trail. How do you know how to go deeper in and create that stuff? How did you learn that?
Sure. So I was always like super, I guess, high level with math. Like I would always do extra math problems since I think the second grade. I would just create these crazy problems to challenge myself and have the teachers check them. And so in the fourth grade, I had a teacher that he would stay after and work with me. I don't know if it was part of the gifted and talented program. I think it possibly was. But he was a former programmer. And so it was on like, I think it was like an old Apple II Plus, the old little computers with the, little floppy drives, and he sat there and kind of coached me through it, and that was how I started learning how to code and write and do the math and figure out how all the different variations and combinations were, permutations. It was, yeah.
So in all your looking back, everybody just putting you in gifted program and you're the genius and you're this, you're going to be successful, you're going to be a millionaire, this is my golden ticket, this is my golden goose, and you just felt that pressure. Is that what you think looking back? Is that what it is?
Looking back, I was just very much, I don't want to say pushed, but kind of pushed to always be the best and that I would do well. But it's funny, there was at one point in my life that I cheated to get into gifted and talented because it was that whatever it takes. I wanted to make sure I got in there and didn't miss it.
Do you blame anybody for that? Do you blame your teachers or your parents, like holding you on that pedestal, you thinking, or is it all you're self-influenced? Was it all you, or do you think...
I think it was a combination. I mean, my parents, I wouldn't want to say I fault them for the drive and the push because they just wanted me to be successful and do things they never did. So I don't know. I don't know if part of that was also the way I process things. And then my teachers always praised me. So it was like you're getting praise and push and all these things combined. Like it was, I fed off of it.
So when things got hard, you didn't know how to ask for help. You just wanted to get it done right. No matter what, instead of just saying, hey, now I don't understand. Yeah.
All right. So at one point in your story, and it was so fast. It was so fast. It was a lot.
It was a good overview, though.
I'm sorry.
You were $1 million in debt at one point, and then you were $100,000 at another point. How did you get out of that $1 million debt to $900,000 difference?
So I ended up in 2007, I had to go bankrupt. And then, so that was how that debt went away. My parents actually offered to pay off my debts, and I was like, that's silly. Like, I'll just go bankrupt and start over again. And so I did that in 2007. And then in 2019, I ended up negotiating with the credit card companies to get all the debt brought down. And so we were able to cut it in half, paid that off, and then, and I still ended up going bankrupt. So.
Wow. So, you ended up with, you said Joe Arpaio. I can't think of his name, but that's the one I told you about.
Oh, Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Yeah. So tell me, is it pink? Did he make everybody wear pink? What was the deal with him?
I think that was the men. I can't remember if our undergarments were pink or if it was just the guys. But yeah, it might have been all of our undergarments were pink. And then you wore the stripes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how was that? Was that intense from other experiences you've had?
Oh, well, so there's been that time in jail and then the 2 weeks I spent here in Colorado Springs. But Arizona was interesting. I mean, it would be my first time staying in a tent. And it sucked. I mean, at first, people thought I was an informant. Like, I would tell them my story about the Porsche and the database, and then they would go, you have nice teeth. We think you're an informant. Like, your story sounds so stupid. Like, basically, you're a dumb criminal. I'm like, we're all dumb criminals because we all got caught. But, yeah, it was rough. I kind of, at first, was getting picked on because we put money on my books when I first went in, and they left my sheet at the front. Where the mail is, and somebody saw how much money was on my books, and so I got pressured every time we had commissary to pay. And one of the ladies, her name was Big Mama, and I was like, oh man, she's gonna shake me down for my stuff. And I was like, I need to just make it out of here in 30 days. I cannot get in a fight because they'll extend your sentence, and I just don't want to get beat up. So it was an interesting experience. There's a lot of things that happen there.
So you blow over it, but I've only heard about Joe Arpaio from afar, like a news story every once in a while. He had you in tents? That was the part of this thing? I know the pink undergarments for the men, or they had to wear pink or something, but that's really all I know. He had you in tents in Arizona.
Yeah, so they call it Tent City. And I think we have a mini version here in Colorado Springs, but it's literally like, I think they were white covered tents, and you'd have like four sets of bunks in each tent, and it's a concrete slab, and then there are metal frames on the bunk beds, and then your mattress is like this thick, and I think you got a sheet. And so for me, like I had to work. You have to work while you're there, and my job happened to be in the kennels, and I had to work at night in the kennels. So it's nice. I got to be in air conditioning at night, and this was in June, so it's very hot. And then during the day, I had to try to sleep on my bunk when it's like 120 degrees, and you could feel the bed just heating up. And so sometimes they would restrict our water, so you didn't get water. And if you wanted to be inside in the air conditioning, you either had to be attending a service or it had to be some kind of like recreational time. And it was very segregated. Like at one point, I was able to sit at a table, I think, with Hispanics and whites because I'm mixed, and then at some point I was only allowed to sit with the Caucasians, and so it was a very interesting experience.
Wow.
Wow. All right, so you said at one point you got arrested and you had to do community service, but you couldn't even do community service. Why not? Why couldn't you do the community service?
So my charges were theft and theft of information. And like a lot of the community service places, so I don't know how other people get around it, but the ones I was eligible for, I wasn't eligible for because they were like, well, you have theft and you can't process, you can't work on, and I couldn't work on the computers. So it was like, how can you volunteer and serve us? And so I happened to connect with somebody, and they connected me with an organization and said, well, if you just write them a check every month, they're going to mark down your hours for you. And I said, okay, if that's what it takes, then I'll do that.
Wow.
Goodness.
That sounds like a loophole.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's why she said she hoped the statute.
Yeah, it sounds like a kennel or something. You already had the kennel time. If you like dogs, if you like that, you could do a SPCA or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's go to current times. All right, I guess that's all. Is there more? Do we want to dig deeper? I don't know. And you do have pretty teeth.
No.
I get that.
Thanks.
You're sitting there telling that story, and your teeth are smiling, and you've got this great smile, and she's like, yeah, and I stole people's identity and smiling. It's like, golly, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit at all.
I know, and it's like that's one of the things I've been trying to work on with speaking. My coaches are like, you smile when you talk about stealing somebody's identity, and I'm like, I know, but it's because I'm on the other side of it. I guess that's how I look at it, is I'm not in that place in my life. I've come from that.
So Natalie was asking about the mafia connection.
How did you get involved in that? Is that the friend that you met was involved, and so you got introduced, or how did you get involved with them?
Yeah. So that was wild. It was so like her and I started going out to the nightclubs and meeting a lot of different people. And it was through the nightclubs because a lot of our stuff here in the Springs is connected to those entities. And so we started getting in with a lot of those people, and that was kind of how it happened. That was actually the first time I got introduced to cocaine, was through all of those connections. And it just kind of it morphed over time. At one point, we even went to Vegas and met them out there, and we're hanging out. Like, it was fun. It was a fun life. And there was a lot of interesting things I saw, a lot of interesting things I learned with how things are run here in our city.
Wow.
And in Vegas.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the identity theft, you tiptoed into that, but how many people do you think you stole identity overall?
About two. I used one to open up a P.O. box here in Colorado Springs. I don't know if that ever... I don't know. I think that was part of my case here. I don't really recall because, again, I didn't serve any time for that. It was the community service and probation. And then for the Porsche in Arizona, that was a full identity theft, using somebody else's full-on identity and everything to attempt to purchase the car. Aside from that, that was it. But having the database of Colorado Springs, there was over 450,000 identities with, I believe, social security numbers, addresses, in that database. And so there was what they were charging me. Originally I had a lot of charges, and it was all the intent of what I could have done with that information. And so something that's interesting, and I've never shared this, is when they confiscated all my stuff, like the hard drives and the computer in Colorado Springs, when I finished all my stuff, they gave me everything back, which I thought was just the dumbest thing ever. Like, why would you give me back the database that I'm not supposed to have? Like,
They did.
talk about an interesting, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I got all my hard drives back untouched. I was just like, that is wild. And there was some shady stuff that happened in the 2019 case when they arrested me too, with stuff that they took that was never logged into evidence. Like I am like, it is wild the way the criminal system is.
Yeah, yeah. I'm terrified of that. You know those wrongfully accused movies? I can't watch them because I know I'm not smart enough to fight out of it. So I don't even want to watch it. I
Yeah.
don't want to play that game. I don't want to play that fantasy. I don't like it.
Mm.
Oh, I don't like it at all. Where else were we going, Natalie? Golly, there's so much.
I don't know.
So let's go back. You have behind you Fit to Exist. Tell Natalie, we spoke a little bit before we started recording. Tell Natalie about Fit to Exist and what you're doing nowadays.
Sure. So, as I told you, I went through inner healing, had the life coach through Tony Robbins, and then got back into fitness. And I'd been certified as a personal trainer since 2009, but I would go through a heavy phase and then I would lose weight. And it was just kind of like this. And when I would go through my heavy phases, I'm like, you can't be a personal trainer and not look like a personal trainer. Like that's horrible marketing. And who's going to listen to you? So I always stayed with my certifications and kept my knowledge up and, current. And so I always had that. So in 2023, I actually had been volunteering and became on staff with the ministry that I got a lot of my healing through. And I felt like God released me in February of 23. And then I got the opportunity to start writing my book, which is still in rewrite, so it's not published yet, but I've been published in 2 other books sharing my story. But I also got the opportunity to be part of an entrepreneurial program, and that was how I started launching Fit to Exist. And it was people hearing me on a podcast and said, we want your transformation. How did you do it? And I was like, oh, well, I could totally put that together. I've got all the background. I've got the life coaching. I've got the inner healing and the ministry part, and then I've got the fitness part. So yes, this is what I want to do. I love helping people. But what I found is I max out. Like I can only work with 8 clients at a time on a 12-week program. And they're pretty expensive. I mean, most of my clients are, they're women over 35 that are millionaires because they have the time and they have the money to invest and they want it. And it's either, women that are looking for purpose or that transformation because you really got to dig deep when you're going to invest that into yourself to be better and want all that.
Wow, cool. So it incorporates like everything, not just physical fitness. It's all of it.
Yeah, I say it's body, soul, and spirit because your soul is your mind, will, and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do a renewing, because you can do superficially, you can go work out and get some results, or maybe only get a little bit, but you need to sustain that. And a lot of times it's a mindset and it's foundational and it's really working on yourself from the inside. Because I know bodybuilders that have the most beautiful physiques, but they're miserable inside. Like the rest of them is just not great. And so I said, we need to do something where people can wholly, as a whole person, be the best version of themselves. So how do we do that? We start from the inside out.
Nice. I like it.
Well,
That's
I'm waiting
great.
for you to take over now because I told her you're going to college for nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about her doing camps. Can you tell Natalie about your camps that you offer? The retreats.
Yeah. So retreats. So I had the opportunity one of my clients owns an amazing event space here in Colorado Springs and was like, Lisa, you keep talking about wanting to do retreats. Here, I'm going to give you the space to use. Go do it. So then I got 7 of my friends and said, okay, guys, let's do this. I want to offer a weekend, like an accelerated transformation weekend. And this is what I'm going to do. So I pulled in, one of my friends was a former pro women's basketball player. She was on a show for Swedish Gladiators, like back in the day, which is like American Gladiators. So, and she's an amazing trainer, nutrition. She can do everything. Great story. One of my other friends led a $10 billion tech company. She's a brain-based coach. So she's like, cool, I can offer this. Another one, she's very holistic and she created this thing called the Wellbeing Blueprint, a workshop series. And so anyways, I pulled in all these different people with these skill sets to offer this just weekend for clients, for people that were interested, and it blew them away. Like the stories at the end of it I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help people get transformation in a weekend because it's fast. And it's a time investment, but they're still able to get it in there and you get to hear from a wide range of people. Well, all that to say, 90 days later, I wanted to keep doing the retreats, but I found it was challenging to work with 7 other speakers. So I picked, out of those 7 speakers, I picked 3 that were absolutely, and they were all amazing to work with, but 3 that were super easy to communicate with. And I felt like they really leveled everything up. And that became my core team, and we call it Life Reimagined. So one of them is her name's Ike Chan. She led the $10 billion tech company, just phenomenal. Another one, Andrea Bolt. She's a director at one of the big fitness companies here, but she does retreats all over the world and just has these foundational principles for life that are fantastic. The Wellbeing Blueprint. And then my other friend Ken, he was a bomb squad technician, I believe in the Marine Corps, but he's a 10X guy. John C. Maxwell, and he's an amazing guy. So that's our core team. And so we design these now 1.5 days. So Friday night into a Saturday retreat that just blows people away. And they're not fitness driven or health driven. They're more transformation driven and helping you tap into what you need to do and what do you want to achieve in like the next 30 days. And how do we help you get there?
Wow. Very cool.
Have you ever heard of Optavia?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not placing it.
I didn't know if there was a gap here. I didn't know if there was a thing. It's a health program. They supply the food.
It's a nutritional program, pretty much. But they try to work on your mind, your body, and they save finances because they want you to be a coach for it as well. But it helped me because it did work on the mind, whereas all the other diets that I did was all just a diet, and you get sick of it and you throw it out, and then you do what you said. You go up and down and up and down. So it helps that it works on mind as well. But I'm, like you said, I'm going back to school for my master's in nutrition because I like doing this, but I feel like, I mean, it's not everybody. It doesn't work for everybody. There's not a one fits all thing. So yeah, I don't know how much you want me to go into.
No, you're good. You're good. So what I was saying is, when you have these people, she has people that just quit. They can't afford it anymore. And they just quit on her. And they ghost her and they quit answering the phone. Mm-hmm. What do you do when you hit a wall when they quit answering your phone call?
I've been pretty fortunate and haven't had that happen. It's usually me having to transition from clients. And so I kind of, once I get them going, I plug them in. So like some of my clients actually come and meet me at one of the other gyms here in town. And I'm like, my goal is to help you create your habits and be on your own once we're through most of the inner healing and life coaching. And people will always be on a healing journey. But for the fitness part, my goal is, let me help you figure out what fits your lifestyle and you can go do it. That way, if I'm not around or you're traveling or I'm traveling, you can still maintain everything. So I've been pretty fortunate with that. And I always kind of look at it as clients are kind of like friends, you know, the saying that goes, they're either in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes the clients don't fit and I don't chase them because I'm like, you obviously, if you're not invested in what I'm offering you, it's just not going to work. And that's probably one of the hardest things to see. But yeah, I do pretty well with people finding me and reaching out.
I think the hardest part is helping them and you see them get successful and you see the weight coming off and they count and they check in and they tell you they lost 30, 50, 70 pounds and then they ghost you and they just go right back up. And it's like, just talk to me. We found that the food addiction is like a drug addiction. It's like anything else. And they start sneaking snacks and not reporting to you and telling you that. I don't know why I went up this week. And then you see on their Facebook feed that they went out to Red Lobster. Yeah. You know, it's like, you didn't tell me that. You know, we can plan this.
I'm not a food Nazi. I'm just like, look, everybody does different things. That's a decision that you made, and that's okay. You just have to know the consequences. I'm not here to yell at you. I'm here to guide you to get you back on track if you went off track. But some people just get so, I don't know, feeling guilty. I don't really know. Or maybe they're just not ready. And that's what I have to assume. They just weren't ready. Mm-hmm. They thought they were. They started. They got on a good track. But in the long term, they weren't really ready.
See, I have
I think that's probably the hardest thing.
Everything to me. Eat, breathe, sleep, magic. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with the food, yeah, it is hard, and a lot of that's a mindset. Really finding out why somebody wants to change their habits. Why do they want to be healthier? And if it's
Mhm.
not for them and it's for somebody else, the like you could be dealing with so many outside factors that have nothing to do with the program, or if they just haven't hit that pain or that pleasure point where they are willing to go all in. So.
Right. Yeah.
So I have Magic. Magic, I eat, breathe, sleep Magic 24 hours a day. And she's like, she's been working for me for 20 years.
Right.
And she says, I just wish I had something I was that passionate about.
Mhm.
And once she found this and helped these people, she's like, she's hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going back to school for it. So yeah.
So your book that you're writing now and you're in rewrites, is that about the entire journey, or is that just what you have going on now?
No, so I wrote it almost, it'll be 2 years in August. And so it's my story, it's pieces of my story. And, but it's called Hack Your Healing, a guidebook for inner healing and deliverance. So it tells my story throughout, but it's also all the pieces of how I've gone through the healing process with figuring out where did stuff come in? How did I open up doors, or what did I do that caused this, this mindset to come in? And so it's really going through that process. It's a faith-based book, so it's got a lot of the prayers and the stuff that I do. But yeah, it's part of my story. I've had to edit it because I do a lot of volunteer work in the youth detention centers now. But I always think it's funny. I'm like, well, all that community service that I paid off, I actually get to now do it. But I love it, so it's totally fine. But yeah, the kids are always like, they're youth. They go, "Are you going to bring us your book?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I need to take that story out about the mansions and Bel Airs and the things that I saw. That's a whole other part." So.
Wow. Wow. So, all right. So, can we get into that? What did you see in Mansions of
Sure.
Bel Air? What did you see there?
This was wild. I think I was 22 and I was hanging out with my friend that was the model, and I flew out because some of our other friends that were fitness competitors were all doing photo shoots. So I'm like, cool, this is going to be a cool girls' weekend, and I get to go see what it's like to be a model. And we were shooting on Nicolas Cage's private beach, just all these crazy things. Well, one of the girls, and they were all in different areas in locations with different photographers. One of them forgot their ID, and they're like, "Hey, can you go drive so and so her ID at this house?" So I go and I'm driving through LA, and I take her ID, and I was like, I wonder what kind of photo shoot she's doing. She looks tired, like doesn't look like a regular like model photo shoot. Don't find out until later that night. We go and pick her up in Bel Air. Well, when we went into these beautiful, beautiful mansion in Bel Air, we walk in and it's a pornography set. So they were shooting porno movies. So the people in Bel Air, their houses are used as sets. They rent them out for these movies or to shoot stuff. And it was wild. There was a guy who walked up, and he was, I think he had a robot. He hands me his business card, and it's him naked. And I was like, oh, wow, this is very interesting. Anyways, it turns out one of the girls was out there shooting porno movies, and apparently she was a very famous porno star. Didn't know it, from Colorado Springs. So that was an interesting experience.
You have
Wow.
seen so much, girl.
Yeah, no kidding.
Golly. Everything from the mafia to porn to... That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. All right. So I scrolled around your Facebook a little bit today, and I guess it was one of your retreats. There was a lady that was breaking a board, and she had to read the affirmation, and then she was on the other side. And can you explain that to Natalie and the listeners? What is all of that? It was inspirational.
Sure. So, yeah, I love it. I actually have picked it up from some of my other coaches at their conferences, and they're like, "Go use it." I asked, and so yeah, it's writing down a limiting belief, because we all have them. The most common one I hear from people is, "I'm not good enough," or "I'm not worth it." And so it is saying you are worth it. And what is so on the other side of those boards, a lot of times I'll have somebody say, "Where do you want to be in 6 months?" So I have some where I've done it for 1 year, and I write it and everything. I keep my boards and they come true. So the goal is you declare that you are not whatever that is. So you say the opposite. I am good enough. And you break through that, and you say on the other side of that is, what you're breaking through to. Because one of my mentors once said to me, "Do you want to break or a breakthrough?" And that is something that I hold very dear, is sometimes you're just right on the cusp of that breakthrough and people give up.
Yeah.
So, as a Christian, I saw a reel a few months ago, and it stuck with me. So I'm just going to repeat it to you. I might mess it up. It's like telling a punchline of a joke, so I might ruin it a little bit. But God called himself, or Jesus called himself, or God called himself the great I am several times in the Bible. So what is it blasphemy? Is it, when you say GD, is that, what is that word? I can't think of the word. Taking the Lord's name in vain. So is it worse to say I am fat, I am dumb, because you have God in you? You are talking about the great I am, because we're all part of, I don't know. So maybe you can use that in something, if that makes sense at all. Did you ever hear anything like that? I messed that up bad.
I think I know where you're coming from. We're all made in the image of God, so we're all representing God.
She also has a religion degree, and I don't.
we are poor representatives, but we are still representatives of God. So if you are, just like you're supposed to treat your body as a temple, if you in your mind are saying I am and listing off all these horrible things, in effect you're saying God isn't as good as what you're saying you believe he is, because you're saying you are less than.
Or
is that what
as me being a representative, I am less. Yeah, yeah. God's not represented very well through me, so God must not be great.
Right.
So you want to say affirmatives when you say I am. You don't want to say negatives, because then that's making look bad on God. I don't know.
Yeah.
They said it way better. I told you I'd mess it up. You get the gist.
No, but that's 100% accurate. And that's actually like when I start working with clients, the first 75% when we are starting the process is renewing your mind, right? Because we have those neural pathways in our brain, and a lot of it is affirmations and saying, I am worthy, I am fit, I am healthy, and starting to train yourself and build that foundation of who you are, who Christ called you to be.
Mm. Yes.
So in your magic, I want to know a little bit about your magic that you were doing.
Oh yeah.
You were part of. You were president of SAM, of your local chapter.
Oh no, I was the treasurer, and that's a whole other
scary.
story.
Do they know who you were? Are they still around?
Oh, they're still around. They were very gracious. I just had to put all the money back. Yes, I put all of it back. It was fine.
Golly.
Oh jeez.
Golly. So what kind of stuff did you do? Did you do gospel magic?
I did. I was part of Fellowship of Christian Magicians up in Denver, and I did a lot with puppets. The joke was, oh my gosh, what if Lisa meets her husband at Puppet Jam? And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'd want to marry a puppeteer. I do love puppets, but I don't know that that's really my jam. But yeah, I don't know. I did some sleight of hand. I like illusions. Like one of my favorite ones is the arm chopper.
Okay.
And like where somebody runs up and they take they stand in the place. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, kind of bigger scene. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very cool. I did not know that there was a magic connection there. So awesome.
It's not on her one sheet.
Not on her
So what about the public
Yeah.
speaking? When you do the speaking gigs, are you doing schools? Are you doing corporates? Where are you doing the speaking at?
Sure. I mean, it's a combination. It's been Rotary Club. I have been pulled in for private events, corporate. And then I do speak at schools. So I've spoken at some alternative schools, and that's, which is cool because some of those kids are possibly on their way to the detention centers that I'm already going into, or I don't know. It's a combination, but a lot of them, the goal is, I mean, here that you don't have to be stuck where you are. I mean, one of the biggest things the judge said to me in 2019 at my sentencing was, you're not a bad person, but you've done a bad thing. And it's not the first time you've done a bad thing, but realizing my identity was not, and that I was a bad person. And so when I speak, one of the things is sharing that you're not the person of your events. You don't have to be that. So.
Well, and that also goes for a 300, 400 pound person. You were that. Tomorrow you won't be. You'll be 399. You don't have to be that the rest of your life.
Right.
That's easier to see, though.
Yeah. Yes, that's easier to see, but yeah, you're not. Yeah, I like what you said. You're not your events. You might have made a bad decision, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person. I like that.
Do you have people with like family trauma that come to you as well for help in your retreats?
Yeah, the retreats aren't so much geared. A lot of it. So it's interesting. They're not necessarily my target market, which is my clients over 35, we found that a lot of the people coming to the retreats are entrepreneurs that want to accelerate. And the cool thing is, like, the four of us that make up that core team, we're able to connect people. So we all have great connections here in Colorado Springs and Denver and all over. And we've really been able to plug people. I very much believe in collaborating and co-elevating. And so if I can do an event with somebody that comes to our retreats, I'm like, let's go book it and let's figure it out. So we don't do a whole lot at the retreats in terms of the healing and dealing with trauma, but any of our coaches have that ability to work one-on-one with somebody and help them get through that. Because in my experience with a lot of the inner healing I've done, I started seeing more and more clients that have SRA, which is satanic ritual abuse, and like really deep trauma stuff. And that's a whole other world that I never thought I would ever be exposed to.
Is that big in Denver? I don't know anything about SRA. This is the first I've ever heard that saying in my life.
It's pretty big. It's bigger than I ever realized here in Colorado Springs. And I believe the statistic is Manitou Springs, which is just right. I mean, I drive, to go to Pikes Peak or go hiking and stuff. At one point, it was like the number one spot for witches covens in the world. So there was a lot of witchcraft and stuff here.
Whoa.
No idea.
Yeah.
No idea. So I don't know if you're allowed to say.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I've seen wild stuff.
Or tell me some wild stuff. Are you allowed to mention someone's abuse or what they would have endured? I mean, I wouldn't think they would be on the chopping block for a sacrifice, but I mean, I don't know what you've seen or heard.
No, I mean, there's people that have been, clients, and there's just stuff where you would see, like, you hear of a flash, and this is stuff also I've read, but stuff. I mean, it's all the way from being in a ritual. I mean, and they're there, and it's a lot of times it's their family members that take them. I mean, it's the dad that took them to, because unfortunately there's quite a few high level occult members here in Colorado Springs that are in very prominent organizations that sit in high level stuff. And, we've had people come and say, oh my gosh, I saw so-and-so. And there it's like, oh my gosh, that's, somebody very prominent in our community was at a satanic event. And so you truly don't know what people are dealing with. There was one where a professed witch wanted to get healing. She was ready to leave what she was into and come to the other side. And she literally opened the door without touching it. It looked like a magic trick. Like, how do you have that power to open a door without touching? And one of the things said to her by the minister was, you will not use your powers. If you're coming in for healing, you're going to renounce and let go of all of your powers. And that's a tricky area when you've worked to get all that stuff. It's like getting an education, but at the same time, if you're trying to be on the other side of that, you do have to give that up. And it's an interesting world.
All right, Lisa, I've been in magic a long time. I want to know more about that door opening.
Yeah, how in the world?
You remember silver spoons when we were little kids? The millionaire, he had a remote control clicker for his door. I think that's what she had. I don't think she was doing this. I don't think she was doing magic. I don't know.
Yes, was it her own door or was it just?
I don't know. No, it was a regular door to the office that she opened. I mean, you want to hear like crazy stuff, like, and this was a story. I didn't actually see this, but this was one of our other, another office, because we had two offices at the ministry I was at. So it was in another state, and they were doing ministry. This was the client they were doing the ministry with. Her family was, her mom was a witch, and so very high professed witch. And she astral projected into the session, which is, like when you see the Disney movie Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, right? And they show up in the mirror, like this lady, like an image showed up. She astral projected. And I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. And then I happened to be working with clients and they were like, oh, my dad did that. Oh, my son works for this government agency. He can astral project. I'm like, that's a real thing. And I don't know, it's a very dangerous area. It's not an area I've looked heavily into, because I'm the kind of person that when I get curious, I want to know everything down to a T. And like with magic, I got into magic because I wanted to know how all the magic tricks were done. It was a curiosity. So,
well, let me tell you, you'll never learn it all. I've been in it for a long time, and boy, it's something new every day. And technology evolves, and then they tweak it to make it look like this. It's just every day it's something new. But yeah, you'll never get to the end of that one. Yeah. That's a rabbit hole that goes real deep, and then it goes different directions.
Yeah.
Golly, girl, you have so much
Yeah.
going on. So you have something in your one sheet that just says the grace process. Did we already cover that? That you just take people in and you go through everything with them? Is that what the grace process is?
Yeah. Yeah, so I took the inner healing I had learned over the years, and I love to teach it from stage because it's like 5 steps, right? And I was like, if everybody used the grace process to close out your day every day, I mean, I think you would start the next day even more powerful. So the word grace is an acronym, right? So the G is for, if I always say close your eyes. For me, I use Holy Spirit and Jesus, but I've worked with Buddhists and other people, and so whatever your higher power is, or if it's self, you can close your eyes and go there and say, G is for go. Go to any memory you want to heal today or deal with. And then the R is, once you're in that memory, R is for release forgiveness. So who do I need to forgive in this memory? And then the A is for acknowledge the lie. Because a lot of times when something happens to us, there's a lie we believed because it's a perception. It could be the mood we're in. We don't necessarily have all the facts. It's how we're reacting at the time. So looking at the situation and the memory, acknowledge the lie. What's the lie I believed? C is for confirm the truth. What's the actual truth? What are the facts? What actually happened at this time? And a lot of times when you do that and you apply the truth to the memory or the scenario, the E is for experience healing. So it's another way to look at events and memories and things that happen in our lives. So I call it the grace process.
Now that you've been doing this, do you have trouble coming up with new ones every night?
Oh, can you say that one more time for me?
Yeah, sorry. It might be the internet might be off a little bit. Do you have trouble coming up with a new one every night? Are we losing you?
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So no, I don't. I mean, I can do the grace process every day because there's stuff that happens throughout the day. I mean, it could be something really minor.
Okay.
It could be something really big. I'd say as long as we're in the world, there's always going to be stuff to deal with. So.
Well, I mean, I can think of stuff I've done in my past that I'm like, man, I shouldn't have done that. But like to do it every night before bed, it's like, all right, well, I've already done that one. What did I do today?
I guess what she's saying is it doesn't have to be big life
No,
events.
I know.
Anything
That's what
real
I'm thinking.
small,
That's
too.
what I'm
Yeah,
thinking. Yeah. All right. So, in the big scheme of things, we were talking before the podcast that you might want to put your life story into a movie. And hearing you go through it so fast and rattle it off so fast, that's a big onion to take apart. That could definitely be an hour-and-a-half movie.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Or podcast or whatever.
Right.
Have you thought about writing something out or doing something to
get the process started?
Get that process started. Thank you, Natalie.
Mm-hmm.
So I had met with somebody out in California, and we were looking at first steps, which is putting together a marketing and distribution plan. But that is going to be getting an outline of my story put together. And it was kind of looked at as, I don't know that we'd necessarily do a movie. It could be more of a series because there's enough content to even do a 3 or 4 part series. And where my life is at now and where it's going, there's going to be a lot more to it. And so it's pretty cool. One of my coaches and friends that has been amazing in where I'm at in my story. She's like, Lisa, she goes, I think you should wait a little bit longer for your story because you're just barely starting. Like where you're about to go is going to be even bigger. And so that's super exciting because I have some pretty crazy goals and I thought they were already crazy as they were. And she said, no, we're going to get you here. And so that's exciting because that means I'll have helped a lot of people.
Well, you're doing a lot on your own, but it sounds like you have a big team behind you as well. So do you have coaches under you as well?
Not under me. I have a huge support system. I have, one of my friends, I call him my $100 million mentor. And I met him at the gym a couple of years ago. He trains with my trainer and and just amazing guy. I mean, he'll speak into things, give me advice. And I randomly meet people that come into my life and it's great. They truly want to help and pay it forward. And that's one of my goals is how do I continue that process and pay that forward and help others?
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where do I send people to find out more about you and to join Fit to Exist and to get your book and to get all your stuff? Where do I send everybody?
Sure. So the easiest, well, either lisabischoff.com, which is LISABISCHOFF.com, or fit to exist, FIT, the number 2, XIST.com. And I'm pretty active on social media. Instagram is probably my biggest, and that's at Lisa underscore the letter B underscore CO for Colorado. And so, yeah, I keep all my stuff updated there.
Nice.
Wow. So anybody, do you have a program for somebody that lives in Virginia or somebody that lives in California? Is there some way they can connect with you instead of doing hands-on training and research?
Sure. I mean, I do have clients. I have international clients, so I can do virtual sessions and work with somebody in that regards. I do have a package. I haven't actually used it yet to fly on site to work with people one-on-one and help them establish and develop things there. So that's always an option as well.
Your virtual package sounds really good. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So it would be it would start off with a lot of the I guess you'd call it the inner healing part, because one of the biggest things I do when I identify with people is, what is your limiting beliefs? Why haven't you achieved the things you've already set out to do? So basically, why do you want me to help you? And so I need to know what's your why and how can I help you? Because I want to obviously make sure we're a good fit. But then, yeah, once we identify those, I can design an entire package. I have my own branded app, which is through Trainer Eyes. So I can load the workouts if somebody wants the training part of that. And it's the accountability. The app tracks everything. So I have all the tools to do everything in that regards.
That is an awesome end that you have, because you're like, what is your limiting belief? Well, I don't have any. Well, then why aren't you doing it yourself? That's awesome. That's a great end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lisa, you were awesome. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. Like I said, we have that Facebook group. I'm going to put all your links to all your stuff on there. I want to see that before photo, and I want to promote the heck out of you, girl. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
This was fun.
Yes. Thank you, Wes and Natalie, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Only thing we have left to say is see you next week.
Check us out online at wesiseli.com and patreon.com/Wes_Iseli for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.